Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building Clearwater County. And we are currently looking at the J.A. Brown Lumber Company. And we're looking at this because we are going to be working on this company today, but not in the way that you might be thinking. So Jackson Anderson Brown and his wife, Emily Brown, have been working on this company for a number of years. And they are in a good place now. They've had a number of issues that have come up over time, but they're at a position now where they would like to expand. They've been saving their money. They've been very diligent with it. And unfortunately, at this point, there's not really any place they can expand. One of the unfortunate things that happened with all of the disasters is they sold a great deal of the land that they had available to them and gave some of it away in exchange for the rail coming here. So now they're kind of hemmed in from all directions and they're unable to expand, which is problematic. Because if we take a look at our production, you can see that they're producing 15 tons of raw forestry products and only processing 8 tons of it. So that's leaving 8 tons here. So I guess the math is wrong somewhere. But so they're about 23 tons now. So 17 tons of this is just being exported raw. So they're leaving a lot of money on the table. And what they're looking to do is consolidate their factory operations into something larger. So today, they have been working with the county to attempt to purchase some land that they could expand their operations onto. It's not going to be anywhere over here, though. It's going to, in fact, be way over here next to this DDI. So, and behind the trumpet. And the idea behind that is at some point in time, maybe they will be able to have ship access and get their products out to sea. Now, they're going to still hope that they get train access. That would be very helpful for them. But at this point, freeway access will be good enough too. So we're going to begin their city over here, which they have decided to call Shorewood, considering they're going to be processing wood over here, and it's on the shore. So this is going to be something that's really important to them, but from my perspective, it's difficult to develop this land without having some historic pattern here. So this is one of the things that is a bit of a struggle, is having a history in this area. We don't really have one. We have a blank palette with a big highway going through it. So we talked a bit about the public land survey system that was used to divide the western states back in the 1785. Thomas Jefferson actually helped develop it. And that is why in the Midwestern states and some of the Western states, you see that there are lands divided into perfect 1 mile by 1 mile squares. And they've been divided over the years. Some have been consolidated, but in general, that is what has occurred. So you see that repeating pattern, and there are farming in some of those. There's forestry. There's just people's homes. And we want to create that. We created a bit of that over here in Ashland. Now, if we wanted to do 1 mile by 1 mile, that would be roughly 200 squares. So let's take a look at what that would be. If we were to do that, we'll just come over here. 200 would be way out here. So we're not going to do 1 mile squares. That's not going to work. But what we did find out over here in Ashland is that roughly 34 units works really well for farming. You can make some really unique patterns, and we are going to fill in the land in between Belmont and Ashland with this repeating square pattern and do the exact same thing over here in Shorewood. And you might wonder why we're doing this. Well, take a look at this land, this image of land in between Sheboygan and Manitowoc. So Manitowoc might sound familiar if you're a Charlie Barron's fan. He is famous for the Manitowoc Minute. I believe that's where he's from. And one of the things that we're going to take a look at is Cleveland, and not this Cleveland, this Cleveland. This Cleveland is a small town in between Manitowoc and Sheboygan, and you can see that it was built around this public land survey system, and that's what we're going to be doing for Shorewood as well. And that's how we're going to fill in the land in between Ashland and Belmont, because this wouldn't remain undeveloped. This land would have a purpose. It would have development. Things would happen. There might be some that's protected as forest or parks, but I think the majority of this would be developed. So But before we get into that, I did do a couple of things to the map that I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm going to go through a number of the updates that I have placed off camera now. The most significant thing that I've done is I've upgraded all of the freeways to the North American freeways. So when you take a look at this, these are really a North American looking highway, and it's a nice upgrade to the area. There is a reason I did that, and I will get to that in just a moment. The next thing I did is I fixed the pillar issue by the Ashland Walmart. I know that was pointed out. There's a pillar right in the middle of the road. That was bad. Next, moving on to the Chicken Bend Parklow. I improved the merging lanes, and I enabled the time traffic lights that we set up. I never actually turned them on, so I got to that now, and things are flowing fairly smoothly. Next, I upgraded the diverging diamond exit towards Ashland to 6 lanes, and that is the primary reason that I upgraded to the North American Freeways bundle, because that bundle comes with a 6-lane road, or 6 lanes, 3 lanes in each direction road. So huge improvement there. Next, I also improved the angles by using the make and square command in Node Controller. So if you're in Node Controller with a node selected, you can hit Command Shift S and it will actually square up the nodes, and it really makes things look a lot better. After that, I improved the merge lanes heading towards the trumpet in all directions, each side of the trumpet, and used the make and square command there as well. And after that, I reversed the trumpet, the actual circular portion of the trumpet, to give more spacing in between the DDI and the trumpet. So I think this makes the merging movements in between there significantly better. And then lastly, I improved the state highway junction on the far side of the map that is yet, that's at this point undeveloped. So with all of these, I added some lane markings and made sure that things look good, like you can see here. My yellow's maybe a little bit off, but in general, it's pretty good. So I think that we're in a very good spot with this as far as all things go. I did run into a couple of issues with the save, and luckily an autosave bailed me out. So we are going to have autosaves enabled from here on out, because I wouldn't have been able to recover this save without it. It was a very scary moment for Clearwater County. And I got to mention one other thing that I did. So I noticed that there was a lot of freight traffic using this dirt road over here. So I did upgrade that as well. We could probably do something better over here, but right now I'm allowing right in, right out access onto the highway. I imagine there'd actually be a pork chop here, which would be a curb. Maybe that's something that we should add, but for the time being, I just have some paint denoting that this movement is okay there, and it's taking some of the pressure off the other roads. And if that movement is desired, it's going to be paved. We're not going to have semis going down a dirt road. That's crazy. So we are going to start building the... Oh, let me regain my bearings. We're going to start building out our rural roadway network. And like I mentioned, we're going to be using a 34 by 34 grid. Yeah, 34 by 34. So that's, when we're using this rural road, it's roughly 1,700 cells. So we're just going to go up. I believe that this one right here is 34. So we're going to use this as our base. I'm going to make sure I have prop anarchy off and anarchy on. And then when I go into here, I want to make sure that I have my road bending off. So I'm going to go through and grid out this entire area, and then once I'm done, I will we'll come back to the video. So there's going to be a brief time lapse and cut, because this isn't going to be the most thrilling thing that I've ever done on camera. Okay, so now we have this pretty unnatural looking, we're going to call it a 1 mile by 1 mile square grid over most of the rural land in between Belmont and Ashland. And this is going to be really beneficial for us once we get it cleaned up, but as you can tell, I wouldn't call it clean right now. It exists. And the reason that we've done it this way is by having anarchy on, we can really make sure that it follows that public land survey system. So we're going to need to go through and clean this up, and there's a couple of ways that I'm going to clean that up. So I'm going to go along, and obviously I want to minimize my rail crossings, minimize my crossings onto the state highways and county highways in the area. So this right here was the county highway. This right here was the state highway in. And what we're going to do is just minimize the number of connections that we're making. And then things like this, we're going to clean it up. Along the water, we're going to have a road that is mirroring this. And then we're going to have some roads that mirror some of the rail that we've put in over time. So that will clean things up. Same thing on the interstate. I would expect to see a road kind of mirroring the interstate along here where all of these country roads were terminated at one point. And these roads, they're all paved at this point with pretty low grade pavement. This would be maintained by the town. They could probably work to fix 1 mile or 2 miles of road every year, and it would be done by someone's grandpa or whatever, so it's certainly the kind of thing that these aren't phenomenal roads, but they really serve the residents well. They get them from point A to point B. Everyone knows everyone on these roads. These roads would be named after families that live in the area or have historically lived in the area. So we're going to build that. And then one thing, referencing back to the Lake Michigan shorefront in between Sheboygan and Manitowoc that I want to replicate is Lake Shore Drive. So along the lake shore here, this is going to be land that was sold off. So the way that I'm envisioning this is that Shorewood and this area right here were purchased from the county at a kind of a sweetheart rate, with the idea that really the Browns would create jobs in the county. Even though we look down here and there's no need for industry or offices, there's always a demand. There's a political demand. So we're going to see that political demand get realized, and we're going to build a pretty significant industrial complex over here. And to support that, we're going to need people. You can see that that's our most significant need right now, and we're going to fulfill that by having some rural development over here. So right now I'm going to make the rest of the roadway connections, and we will again time lapse through some of this. And you'll see that I'm just working within the roads that we have. We're going to use the curved road tool and the freeform road tool to make most of those connections. We're going to sever the connections across the interstate like this one that we shouldn't have. And it's going to really start to come alive. So we're going to take just a moment again and come in and time lapse through this. Okay, now so for the rural lands, most everything has been divided. And it looks like we've lost part of what we are hoping to get fixed up. I'm going to reset this object. It's probably not the height of realism, but we're gonna go for it. I won't reset these homes. I'll just get rid of them. And I think these homes have been like haunting us for the entire episode so far. So nice to get rid of those. So what I've done here is basically followed the river, and basically everything inside of the river, inside of the roads and the river won't be developable. That's floodplain. Honestly, these roads are probably pretty dangerous. Developing along them is really taking your property into your own hands, but it's something that would probably happen, truthfully, at least when this area was initially envisioned. And then over here, we've got some roads following the train tracks, trying to maximize the amount of land that people would have available to them. Over here, we've got some lots that are a little bit bigger. And what we're going to do to make this all feel a little bit more natural is kind of go through and simulate land divisions and consolidations. So the way that I'm going to do that is just to go through and divide some of these up. And you'd imagine that the lands closer to town might have some more divisions. And the further out you get, maybe you get some more large lots through here. And truthfully, I want to make sure that anarchy is off now, because the last thing I want to do is inadvertently start to make some issues here, which I've been known to do from time to time. Wherever I see that I missed a junction, I'm going to make those as well. So these are coming in at pretty ugly angles. And I did that on purpose. A lot of times in rural areas, you'll see some pretty ugly angles coming in at some of these places. And, you know, I think a traffic engineer might call them substandard, which is a really nice way of saying, yeah, we would never do this again. But that happens all the time in rural areas. And as you know, as there's the ability and funding available to fix up those angles, or as safety demands it, improvements are made. But it's really, you know, it's not something that happens routinely, not those sorts of fixes. So I'm going to go through and fix up some of this stuff, but not a lot. Just stuff where it was clearly no good. So I do have my toggles on here so that I can see what's going on, and that's where I can tell a couple of things. So I got a few more road connections to make, and I did decide to kind of go overboard on the connections over to the state and the county highway. I have fewer on the state highway, but more on the county highway. I mean, the idea behind that is the county's pretty free and loose with it. They allow more junctions to be made, at least at the time when these roads were created. Over time, I would assume that both entities take a look at what they've done in the past and feel pretty bad about it because it's the sort of thing, those junctions on those high-speed roads, that speed differential is what's really deadly. So having that in a collision would be absolutely horrible. So you can imagine that they wouldn't feel comfortable with those sorts of junctions anymore. And there's lots of kind of ugly road connections like the one I just made, but we're making sure that all of the land is covered. And you can see when you start to divide up these parcels, it starts to feel like there's a life to it. We're going to give it life at some point. I don't think that's going to be today because we want to get over to our town, but I do want to divide this up a little bit and then formally define the towns. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, and I think that's about all I want to do with the land. You can see the pattern that's been developed, and it's irregular but very regular at the same time. So eventually we're going to go and develop and fill all of this in and make it feel like a place, but that eventually is not today because we're going to get the start on our little community down here. So first of all, why don't we define our districts? And what I want to do is create some towns. So what we're going to do is just kind of go through here, and I want to go and grab, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll say 5 square miles for these. I'm actually thinking I might make these even smaller. So maybe, well, actually we'll stick with 5, but I'm gonna migrate it a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to name all of the towns. This is the only town that has a name. This is going to be the town of Shorewood. Every other town needs a name, so in the comments, please give me some town names. In fact, you see one. Oh, Myrtle District. Yeah, you're not going to get me here, Myrtle. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 town names. So I need a lot. So for the time being, I'm just going to make this the town of for all of these. Okay, so I want you to get a good survey of these. And if you got a name for any of the towns, please leave it in the comments. Let me know which town you want renamed, and I will grab the ones that are the favorites in the comments, so long as they're not, you know, obscene. All right, and so now we have the only town that I'm naming, the town of Shorewood. So we're going to use this grid as kind of our basis for the entire town. But one thing that we're going to need to do is have our collector come in and do something a little more rational. So we're going to follow the shore. Truthfully, I might back it up just a little bit. And then we're just going to connect right in. Now, don't worry, I'm going to upgrade this road, but I do want this to do something right away. And what it's going to do is connect up all of these disjointed pieces. This is doing exactly what I want it to. Not surprising, I guess I'm building, so. Okay, so we've got a couple of roads coming through here. Or, you know, at least making connections over to this road, and that's kind of the goal, is just to form that backbone roadway network. We're going to break these up and subdivide them as time goes on, but you're going to see this little area remain. And I do want to follow the river over here, similar to what I did when I was creating the towns, because we're going to have our plant fairly close to the water. So obviously what they would attempt to do would be to float the logs down the river over to this mill. So I think that even though this might appear to be the absolute best land in this entire city, it's also the very best place for industry. So that's probably discouraging to a lot of people, but it's the reality of it. So that's what we're going to work with. So let's go back over into our lumber company and take a look at what we have over here. Now, the game plan is going to be to decommission some of this stuff out here and relocate it. They've got the money for it, and they could build more significant factories over there. So right now they're going to be heavily reliant on the highway to get all this material over there, but it's going to work out okay. So we're going to need a sawmill if we want to get our plain timber, and we're going to need a paper mill as well. So these are the things that we're going to build over here right off the bat. We're going to try to make sure that we're lining everything up. In fact, I'm going to disregard those, and we're just going to build our facilities over here and decommission those ones that are over there. So one thing that we're going to need to do is get a little bit tricky with our factory. So I want this lumber company to extend all the way over there. So what we're going to do is just draw a line, bring it right over, and we'll just disconnect all of this. There we go. And that's a trick that, you know, when Biffa shared that, it kind of blew my mind because that was one of those things that I had never even considered doing. So when he shared that, that just took the game to the next level for me, because being able to do this and keep this one factory is going to be incredibly helpful when managing our supply chain. So that, you know, I could have made another factory district over here, but it's just, if I want to manage the supply chain, this is the most effective way to do it. So we're going to have our sawmill over here. And again, we're going to need more roads for this. So I'm going to stub in a couple of roads. And we're going to need power and water over here. I think I'm going to turn the speed up for the sake of money. Actually, why don't we focus on getting our water pipes here? We'll take that underneath the road where they belong. We'll use our easement right here to make a connection. Perfect. And we've got lots of water pipes to clean up eventually. For the time being, we're okay. We'll just deal with it. The other thing that we're going to do is take our power from this transmission line. Now we're going to need to be able to convert this. So right away, I'm going to grab this substation, and we're going to add that right over here, right near our factory. Actually, I'm going to relocate that. We don't want to be running those heavy transmission lines all the way through the city. So we'll keep that over here, which will be a much more suitable location for it. We've already got some work to do to get it over here. Okay, so I'm going to run this. I'm going to cross over the highway. We'll run it along the side. Then we'll try to follow our bridge over here and go right along the freeway and just meet up right here. There we go. It's very close to the highway. Do not love that, but maybe we'll fix that at some point. And then we've got to make sure we have our connection here. There we go. So the last thing that we need is a power line going over here. This will eventually be decommissioned, but for the time being, it's going to be absolutely necessary. We'll get that going right here. So the very first thing I'm going to start out with, I think, is some storage for raw materials. We're going to need to get some lumber here. And I'm going to set these to fill. because we absolutely want to get the materials from the other side of town over here. So that's going to be very important for us. So now that we have these set and good to go, we're going to try to sneak a road in back here. We can use move it. I always forget that. Even in Clearwater County, where, you know, I have every mod in the world at my disposal. I forget it from time to time. Okay, so we have our log yards. We're getting those filled up. No trucks in use. That's interesting. 3 workers. That was one of the problems that they were seeing over in Belmont, is they didn't have enough workers too. So it's going to be a problem here until we get some development going. But right now they are focused on their factory. Then they'll probably build some housing that their residents or that their workers could buy, because nobody wants to commute 1,000,000 miles to get to work. And, you know, people might accept that more in a rural area, but it doesn't mean that they like it. All right, there's our first trucks coming in, loading this up with lumber. I'm wondering, is just owner returning to facility? Yeah, way over here. So I want to set these to empty so that these bring all of the wood over to the other facilities. So then we need some warehouse yards, and we're going to need to build our factory buildings. So let's get started on that. So first, I'm going to add a couple of sawmills. We only had one over in the other community, and we know that that's not enough. So we'll add those over here. And we'll add a road behind it. And then we're going to acknowledge the reality of this situation. We do not have any place to live over here, so we're going to need parking. I'm going to again continue to use this little asset right here. I really like it. So this is that it's the 2x4 parking lot, and it's just so convenient. And then I can come in through here, hopefully with not a 259 brush, and I can just paint the rest in. And I could certainly try to improve the aesthetics of this with lights and things of that nature, but this is certainly going to do the trick for the time being. I think I'm pretty pleased with this. Wow, and look at that line of trucks coming in here. This is what the community is completely dependent on right now. So it makes a ton of sense. So again, workers are going to be our limitation over here. We've got 3 here, 4 there, 8 of 46, 11 of 46, so not good. Not good at all. So we also want to have our paper mill over here. What I think we're going to do is extend this road out. So this is our biomass pellet plant, which produces paper. And truthfully, we might need to do something else with this road. So let's count this out. So I need 10 units. And I clearly counted that out wrong. And now I don't have enough money to build it. So that's a bummer. So we've got that over here, and I'm wondering, I can click my industry area info over here. So we have 32 tons produced. You know, I could probably keep those factories over there in the other part of the community. It's probably okay, but we do need some warehouses. These are processing this plain lumber. And this is processing paper, and we have no warehouses to store them in right now. So, and we have no money. So we're going to speed this up so we can get some money. And maybe we need to focus a bit on housing because we are struggling. So they are going to be rapidly responding to the needs of their community. So 34. So we're just going to take that right in half. And I do want to get this road upgraded too before we get too far along. So this is our 4-lane road. We are going to take this just to a normal 4-lane. I think we're going to keep our highway going just for a minute, and then we'll take it straight to a 4-lane road. And I would expect to see something way overdeveloped like this in a town this size. They're going to say, well, we've got to have this road. And you know, even now, because we built this, now we have issues. We don't have enough space. which is honestly okay. We don't need this much space. So I'm curious if I have anything narrow here, and I don't, and that's fine. Unless, yeah, so this is a 2-unit 3+ lane. So I do have some asymmetric roads that I could use. Oh, and I do have this. So this is the 4-lane. We'll upgrade this. We'll keep this going. I will need to use Anarchy to get this fit in now. That's totally fine. And now we've got this wonderful overbuilt roadway network that is absolutely obscene. This community does not need this much road, but they have it because that's what happens. So we're going to turn Anarchy off so I don't make any mistakes. And we're going to build a really small neighborhood over here. They're going to need basic city services, and they're going to also need a place to go shopping. And then we don't need high density, we need low density. So we'll give them some convenience along this collector road here. This will be kind of the start of a little shopping district. And we're going to mix the uses. You would fully expect in a town this size to see the uses well mixed. So I am going to set a special district theme for this, but I think I'm going to save that for the next one because I really want to do a deep dive into district themes. For the time being, I'm going to allow whatever to spring up. The other thing that we're going to want to do is take a look at our junctions. Right now, we are allowing basically whatever. So we're going to we'll add stop signs along here. And I should really see if prioritization works on TMPE, because that's one thing I'm unaware of, if I set prioritization on a road, if it works. But right now it's just so small. We'll just go through here. Here we go. And we're making some money, and we've got the city growing a bit. And I think that we should really take a moment to just admire what this community is starting to look like. We got a grocery store, a pub, Tops Barbecue, which, if you're from Memphis, you probably love that. And, Adder's Pub everywhere. So we're clearly with our building selection not mixing it up a lot. We're gonna have to do some more to get this looking good. We should add some landscaping through here to clean it up a bit. And one of the things that's a real shame here that you see in some small towns is you've got this waterfront amenity, and rather than using it and making it a key part of the community, Shorewood, which takes its name from its shore, is backing all of its buildings up to there. And you can see that some of these buildings don't even have windows in the back. What a shame is that? But that happens, and you live with it. Okay, so I think that we should have enough for one more bio pellet plant. So we're gonna get that in here now, and then we need to start thinking about our storage, because we're not gonna be able to get this stuff out of the community unless we have some storage. So we have to have warehouses. We need to have at least 2. So one for each of our uses. So I'm gonna place one here. This is gonna create a weird roadway network right here. So I think I am gonna take this down here. You still end up in a weird spot where, you have a dedicated right-hand turn. There's not really much of a need for that, but whatever, it'll do the trick. We're gonna set this to empty, and this will be for our paper. And then over here, we're gonna set this to empty as well. And this is for our plain timber. And don't think that I will ever make the mistake of calling it planted timber ever again. The throwback to old Verde Beach. All right. So water pipes underneath our roads. All of these buildings should be functioning and operational. And this should really help us financially. So when we look at our industry area info, you can see that we are still, get rid of Unified UI, we still got some issues. We've still got a real excess of raw forestry products, but we're getting better. So at least we're processing, it was 4 tons each of timber and paper, and now we're up to 13 each. And we're making money, and we were losing money from time to time in this. So this is much better, but we're gonna need to go even bigger. And part of this might be the worker situation, so I think that we'll maybe hold off on going bigger for a little while and worry about really getting this worker situation figured out rather. So what we're gonna do to kind of finish up, I want to go through and make sure that all of our land looks rational. So we got a couple of issues like this lumpy over here. There we go, much better. And then the other thing I want to do is go through. We've got to put some leafies in here and some bushies. We've got to make this place come to life. So we're going to add some in between these homes, some to the front yards, just anything we can do to make this feel more like a place. We've only got a couple houses here. So before this community really becomes something substantial, why don't we really take the time to make this feel like a place that's coming to life? And as we plant all of these trees, we know that there's something else that we really need to take care of here too. And that is fire protection. We're going to need a cemetery. We're going to need a number of things like that. And I forgot to mention one thing that happened during some of the time that I was building out the roadway network for the rural areas, and that is we became a small city. Interestingly, our population has dropped since then. So you don't get the full effect of how good that feels. And I think part of that is our death. But it does unlock the buildings for us, which is what I really care about. So why don't we go through here? We're again going to use our rural facilities. And I think we're going to leave that here off this local road. We're just going to line them up. So we'll have our fire department. We're going to have our police department. We're going to have our EMS service. And then we're going to need some death care as well. And one of the things, so we're going to need, we might actually need garbage collection over here as well because of our jelly mod, or gelly mod, however you pronounce that. But that we'll worry about that in a bit. We're going to need everything from schools, and we're not going to worry about that today. We just want to get the basics in place, and the basics include death care. So I would assume that they try to keep this a little bit further out for the time being. So we'll need to get some water to it. I don't know if it needs power. It does. It does. So we'll need to run our rural power line over to it. But I don't want to stop there. We've got some death care issues over in Ashland. So we are going to use a bit of eminent domain and add in. We will make sure we have anarchy off. We are going to add in a crematorium. This is our first crematorium in the entire community. So useful, so incredibly helpful, and we absolutely needed this because we've been dependent entirely on our cemeteries, which is no good. So I'll slow it down so that we aren't all jumpy and crazy. It's nice to be back in Ashland to take a look a little bit. So, and while we're over here, why not take a quick peek? All right, so back over here in Shorewood, we don't have all that much going on, but at least we have fire protection and apparently lots of parking up this road because you can't park in some of these other areas. And that tells me that we need more parking lots. I think I am going to sneak a couple back here and then we'll landscape a bit. Like I mentioned, we'll finish that off. There we go. And now let's get a little bit of landscaping in. We'll get some of our leafy fulls in. Sneak those in right around here and try to hide some of this storage. You wouldn't want to see that in the downtown area. I like that. That feels good. So these folks, I am curious, where are they going? So we'll just take a look. Are you working at these factories? You're a senior citizen. I don't know why you decided to move here, but okay. Interesting. And for some reason, my routes are not working. Not 100% sure about that, but that's okay. It looks as though our worker situation's at least not getting worse. I guess that's something. And I wonder if I'm just, I guess I was selecting buildings and I didn't like that. But I can select these buildings, just not the homes. They're not going anywhere, apparently. Just a bunch of senior citizens in this community, a couple adults. And we still have, a lot of people. So that's private vehicles driving in. Looks like all the way, holy cow, all the way from Ashland to get to this factory over here, which is the situation that we would like to remedy eventually. Get these workers coming from this community. But for the time being, it looks like that's not our situation. I think that we have left this in a very good spot. Like I said, give me some names for some of these towns. And I do think that we need to take a brief city tour just to take a look at what we've done. Okay, I hope that you've liked this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And hit the notification bell if you want to know when I release new videos like this one. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.